Hey, internet! You love to see it. G'day, everyone. Welcome to Oak Barrel After Hours episode XXVIII, which, if my Roman numerals are correct, equals something like 28.
28, I reckon so.
My name is Scott Fitzsimons. To my right, to your left, is young Joseph Perry. And we are sitting here at the Oak Barrel Bottle Store at 152 Elizabeth Street, smack bang in the middle of the city. If Joey's head wasn't so big, you'd see cars going on the back out there on Elizabeth Street.
Not many, though.
Not many, no. It's a bit of a big day today. There's lots to talk about, lots to drink, lots to very cautiously and hesitantly celebrate, I think, as well. And if you're not familiar with After Hours, basically what's going on here is the store is closed. We've kicked everyone out. We're going to have a bit of a chin wag, try some drinks, some new drinks, some old drinks, some celebratory drinks, a few different things. And while I get a few things set up, I might throw to Joey. And, mate, what have you been up to this week? What's happened?
Yeah, it's been an interesting old week, actually. What has happened? We actually wrapped up a pretty killer wine tasting last night with a few people involved, but we had the guys from Cellahan, so Harry and Ed coming in, and also Matthias Muller and guest cameo from Wittmann as we tasted through two German Rieslings, one from Wittmann and also one from Eva Klusrath in the Mosel. So it was the Moselwurst Rheinhessen tasting lineup last night, which was a lot of fun.
The big man himself.
Yeah, tuning in all the way from the Rheinhessen in Germany, which was really, really cool. But just diving deep into the different styles, flavor profiles, vintages, pretty much anything you could think of, was talked about on that stream there. And so we're back at it again tonight for our regular Thursday night, sometimes Wednesday night, sometimes Monday night, might even be a Friday night, who knows, appearance.
Whenever we find ourselves in the same room with nothing better to do.
Which is pretty often these days, actually.
It does happen quite a bit.
But no, other than that, just enjoy. I mean, the good news was announced not long ago that June 1st here in New South Wales, we are not fully, but we're back into action. I know that everybody's pretty excited about that.
Yeah,
the new 4 meals 50-person limit rule for bars and restaurants. I can't wait. Yeah, I got a long list of places to be, people to see.
It is, yes. It's very, very exciting. I mean, we've been through these daiquiri times with a bunch of restrictions, obviously. I actually have been out, went to a bar, had a bit of a feed. I went to a restaurant that had a bar attached to it, had a couple of drinks, had a feed, which was very, very good. So looking forward to getting that in and about. But yes, June 1, which is Monday, is going to be very, very big. And I think a lot of the bars that sort of we work with are opening from about Wednesday. So it's going to be quite exciting.
Big day to Yoko and Andreas at Brave New Wine, tuning in again, and also to Nine Fingers Brewing, tuning in on the Instagram there. And also Ash at Ricatera Farms, bring on Monday. I can't wait. Very excited. Why wouldn't they make it Friday, you would think?
Well, why not just Monday?
Well, this Monday,
yeah.
Spain.
Yes. Like, what am I going to do on Monday apart from wait around until Friday?
That's true, yeah.
There's lots to get to. I'm going to have a celebratory drink of something that's in the freezer and down here in a second to sort of mark that. But for those of you wondering as well, yes, it is also a big day because Rugby League is back tonight at 7:50. I think the mighty Parramatta Eels will be kicking off against the hopeless Brisbane Broncos. And you don't need to go anywhere because, yes, I will be giving live score updates. If I go
off into Parramatta versus Brisbane right here, actually.
Yeah. So if I go off into the distance at any point, that is why. A couple of comments coming through on the Facebook. And, yes, I have the ability to actually put the comments up on the live stream tonight, which is new and exciting. How good was Philip Whitman by Hazza?
Awesome.
Great, yes, correct is the answer. And Paul Anthony Downey, also known as God in some quarters, loves the haircut. And I do. I'm pretty happy with the haircut.
Yeah. I think you might need to give me the number of your barber.
Yeah, the old $15 job. Bloody genius, mate. It took about 5 minutes max. No, like just bang, done. $15. Bloody love it. And I think I've got more ears than I would have had if you gave it a go last week.
That's true, yeah.
So I'm more than happy to have a go at York Out. A couple of comments coming in on Facebook too, that are alluding to some late breaking news today, which I'm going to mention very quickly at the risk of being a bit self-indulgent. But the fantastic Thurio distillery down the Goolwa Peninsula in South Australia been big fans or big supporters of Whisky Fair in the past couple of years and make a really excellent whiskey. Very small batch, release every 3 months on average, there or thereabouts. Sometimes they come in batches of 2 or 3 and then you wait 6 months. But certainly, one of the best, most consistent quality whiskey producers in a small batch format in Australia. They did Distillers Dinner a couple of years ago. They have a series of that they're doing at the moment called Barrels of Gratitude, where they write the names of certain people in the industry who they feel have helped them out a little bit in the past year. And they must have got drunk last night and lost their mind because they've written my name on one of them this afternoon, which really should really be the Oak Barrel name, if anything. But I'm very humbled, surprised, and surely not worthy to have my name on that barrel. So thank you very much.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's on my face if you want to have a look at it. I think it's written in chalk, which is good because
it's just quite easy to...
as soon as you write my name on a barrel, like the value of that barrel goes off a cliff quite quickly. Written in chalk so it can be wiped off quite quickly when they need to, when it becomes of age and they need to sell it. But no, thank you guys very much. I only sort of saw it about 10 minutes before we came on here, so I had no chance to give you a call, but I will do that. But yeah, that's a little bit of a weird thing that happened today that I wasn't expecting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. I'm pretty chuffed on that.
Whiskey royalty.
Now what we need is a Parramatta to get up, and that would be bloody genius.
Yeah, I don't think you want your name on any Parramatta merchandise anytime soon. So.
No, it's going cheap. It's certainly going cheaper than whiskey. Whiskey a Day says, "Let's go Broncos." How do you ban someone from the Facebook chat? There's got to be a button there to get rid of that. Here we go. What are we going to do, Joe? We're going to have a celebratory drink, first and foremost, something that comes in a smaller glass. It might be 50 of one, 50 of the other.
I think so.
This is a bit of a two-parter, this drink, so I'm going to have to go back to the freezer. I did see there's a comment on your shirt as well. There.
Yeah, so I got a couple of comments there. We did have a nice T-shirt comment as well. So I got the Jack Daniels one on tonight, which, after the tasting event last night and, finding good homes for the rest of the bottles and then maybe a late night poker session or two, rolling out of the house this morning, decided to grab the nearest black T-shirt with a bit of white writing, thinking, that'll say the Oak Barrel name on the front of it. Got to work, pulled it out, and it actually didn't. But yeah, we stayed on brand nonetheless. So hopefully we'll just keep up a streak of me wearing branded T-shirts and getting compliments on them.
I think that comment actually comes from the one and only Talita Alves from Brown Foreman, who is, and this is not my opinion, this is recognised, the world's best American whiskey ambassador.
Yeah, right.
Was the icon of whiskey in Australia, and earlier this year, about 3 or 4 months ago, actually took out the title in London for the world's best. So well deserved, and also bloody good result to have an Aussie. Get up and show the Scots and the Americans how it's really done. It's always good fun.
And we also had a comment that said, Whiskey Gaucho says, popped in yesterday, picked up a 4-pack of the peanut butter beers. They have flown.
Yeah.
I don't think they're probably on the shelf for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Those peanut butter ones that came in, they just flew.
Do have to say a quick g'day to Talita's mum as well, watching in. And if Talita's mum, if you are watching, the rugby league's on a different channel. So you just have to switch this off. This isn't particularly good content or wholesome content either. But yes, so let's get into it. We've spoken for 12 minutes and had absolutely nothing to drink.
I think it's worth mentioning that in my stint here at the Oak Barrel, I've probably made 2 decisions in the spirits department since starting here. One would be Plantation Pineapple.
Yes. Which
now is on the shelf, and the second one would be Fernet Branca, both of which Scott was absolutely opposed to from the start. Look where we are today.
I think it's important to sometimes be the bigger man and admit that you were wrong. But yeah, so, not going to lie, I was a bit of a purist. Love my rums. The pineapple rum didn't brush me the right way the first time I heard about it. Now I'm quite a convert. A quick g'day to Mike Leyland as well on the Facebook stream there. And Fernet Branca, a Italian herbal, very famous historic liqueur, Amaro, very, very popular amongst bartenders around the world, which it took me a little while to come around to. But I think not only have I come around to it, but dare say perfected it.
Well, it could be argued. Yeah.
So we are in quite good moods because this time next week, it'll be a Thursday night and bars will be open, and a lot of our bars that we love opening on Wednesday and Thursday, which is very exciting. Before we do this, I just want to disclose that what I'm about to do is certainly not the opinion of Fernet Branca or Jameson or anyone associated with the Fernet Branca or Jameson brands. This is solely my opinion, and what I'm about to say does not necessarily represent the thoughts, views, or opinions of the Oak Barrel or anyone associated with the Oak Barrel. But on that note, we were actually, this is what we used to do. We used to sit at the Wild Rover, and I would have a Jameson, and you would have a Fernet Branca. And then one fateful night, I believe, at Doss House, I think it was.
Yeah, would have been.
Someone decided to put the two together and created the iconic drink, the Janet. Jameson, Fernet, Janet. Makes a lot of sense. So hi to your mum for me, particularly if she's called Janet. Now, this is a very, very hard cocktail to make.
My favourite thing about ordering these at the Wild Rover was the one bottle of Fernet that got shared between the two floors.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'd be upstairs and sometimes it'd be downstairs.
Yeah. Now, you've probably seen Joey to my right here make some cocktails on this stream in the past. He does it quite well. He's got a bit of a bartending background. And this is a very, very complicated cocktail to make. And I might even post the recipe up there. And so what I've done there...
All measured out exactly.
Exactly 15 mils of Fernet Branca, which should be kept in the freezer. If not, a fridge will do. And let me just put the recipes up here so you can see it. And then 15 mils of Jameson Irish whiskey. Doesn't really matter which way you do it. You can put it on top. You can put it underneath. It doesn't really matter. All taste the same. And what we're doing here is basically taking all the mystical health properties of Fernet Branca, which makes your gut feel good. It's quite a bitter but also minty liqueur, as anyone who's tried it will attest to. So you don't need to brush your teeth tonight after doing this. But what we're doing, that it is aggressive for some people, we're actually just tempering that down a little bit with all the luscious creaminess of Jameson whiskey. Now, you can do this without Jameson. It's not a Janet. You don't do it without Jameson.
It's a really good idea to do it without Jameson.
You can do it with other Irish whiskies as well. Slane, Irish whiskey, you can make the Slanet. If you do Riders Tears...
To One Drop, just tuning in on the Instagram there as well.
G'day, One Drop. How you doing? You're powering us through this moment. You can do it with that, call it the Slanet. It's been done with Riders Tears Irish whiskey, which we call the Rannet. Start with twofold, not an Irish whiskey, but a grain, heavy, soft whiskey, the Twannet. And these other drinks tend to come into play when you're out with someone who has a company credit card and they don't work for Pernod Ricard. And if they're going to buy it, they need to put it with an Irish whiskey or something else that's in their portfolio. So that's where that one sort of comes in. But yes, the one thing that I'm excited about, and particularly this drink, is you never Janet alone. It's a social drink. It's something you do with other people. There's 2 ingredients. It needs to be at least 2 people to do it. And even if that other person doesn't want to do it, there just needs to be someone else around. Yeah. So the Janet is not something that you want to make at home by yourself. That's a bit sad. It's not a sad drink. It's a very fun drink. So I think on my Instagram story today, I was sort of going, the bars are back. That means the Janets are back as well. And Joey, I'd love to say and honour you with the moment to do my first Janet back in about 3 months, but I actually did it last Friday, and it was bloody genius.
I'm not offended in the slightest.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, Joey, cheers to bars. I mean, we're very attentive about this, and I think also to all the hospo workers and managers and everyone in suppliers, everyone involved in that industry. Hopefully you've got through this okay, and we look forward to taking some money out of our pockets and putting it into yours come next week. So cheers. Here's to Janet's. Quick question from Whiskey Day.
Almost as good as the real thing.
Yeah. When I still stuff that up. It still tastes better at Wild Rover Old Mate's Place.
Yeah.
It's still pretty good, though.
I think you were maybe 1 or 2 mils out, to be honest.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Whiskey Day comments. Scotty, do you want regular updates as to how much the Broncos are ahead after each try? Prefer to get a halftime update. I love it. Whiskey Day, I love your enthusiasm, but I'm actually going to have it up on KO He Watches. I'll be watching it live with you to revel in the glory of the mighty Parramatta Eels.
I'm looking forward to just the feeling of the tribe updates coming through in your pocket as well.
Well, it's been a while. I don't know what it's going to be. Live score updates. I've no idea what it's going on. Alrighty, and cheers to Quaker's Hat as well.
We'll just catch up on the Instagram here with Ed Merrison and Vin Merrison tuning in and says, good to see you guys are still on it. Finette, so wrong it's right. I think that just about sums it up. Quaker's Hat, Mikey Archer at Altitude just puts the crying laughing face in the chat. I think that says just about everything it needs to.
And again, I would like to apologise to anyone associated with Jamison, Pernod Ricard, Fernet Branca, the Branca Distillery back in Italy, any of their products or company things. Anyone who works at the Argentinian Fernet Branca Distillery as well, or importers Think Spirits. I do apologise in advance. I apologise in advance. I apologise again for taking your beautiful products in vain, but I had to do it. It's excited. I'm excited. Let's get into it. So, now just getting back to that, the only thing you can't swap out of the Janet is the Fernet.
Is the Fernet.
You got to keep the Fernet. There's nothing quite like Fernet. I haven't done it with Branca Menta, which is basically Fernet turned down.
Well, no, it's like way more mint driven. If you could imagine Fernet but more mint driven, that's what it is.
Yeah, but that's partly because the alcohol's turned down. I think that it lifts that. It doesn't carry the herbs through as much. Anyway, so I'm going to do next week.
Yes.
Let's not use all the quality content in 1 week. Alrighty. Now, Joey, should we get on to what? We can always come back to do a Janet again. I won't put it in the freezer so it's in reaching distance, but I might just chuck it to the side there so people can... Anyway, Joey, should we have a vino? I've got a few spirits to play with a little bit later.
Well,
but,
I'll get to splashing this around. This is actually quite a pretty awesome little wine from a producer that I've really enjoyed for quite a long time. But the new one, the 2019 from Andrea Collect. Andrea Collect is a producer in France, in the Ardèche region, just north of Montpellier. Try and get a good video. But he has quite an interesting background, interesting story. Now, Andrea himself was born in Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. Bit of a rebellious wild child at the time, and spent a little bit of time in the Czechoslovakian army and military. He was in there for a little while. Obviously, no wine background or anything like that, and at one point he got a bit of leave or a bit of time away from his army duties, and he decided that he was going to head down to Brazil. And in doing that, he sort of went through France. And as he was traveling through France, fell in love, decided that he sort of loved the country life there, met this girl, and decided that he wasn't going to go back to join join his Czechoslovakian army buddies.
so he literally chose love, not war.
Yeah, sort of. And then from there, basically, at the time, it wasn't really an option. So he decided that he was going to try and basically fake being sick or injured to the army, and was sort of faking sick notes from doctors and all that sort of thing, sending them back, because if you could prove you were unable to perform military duty, you'd get more time off, so he could keep traveling, keep partying, and doing all this and that. So he did that for a little while, and then it was actually his mum that dobbed him in to the Czechoslovakian army, and he was labelled a deserter to the Czechoslovakian army. So he went back for a little bit, but then eventually, just fled it completely, and moved back to France to be with this girl. And then sort of just by luck found himself in Beaujolais, working, doing a little bit of work with the notorious Gang of Four, which we sort of know from the movement in the 1980s in Beaujolais to sort of
Had a couple of good albums going before.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they were the same, but working with guys like Jean Foyard, Max Breton, Jean-Paul Thanevat, some amazing producers for their time and still today, and sort of started learning, I guess, from scratch this minimal interventionist wine movement under some of the best that there is to learn under, and just went on from there. Went down into Provence, learned a lot more about biodynamic winemaking, and then eventually settled up in a small village in the Ardèche where he is today, living in a caravan in his vineyard, in his organically farmed, hand-farmed, certified vineyards in Ardèche. He's got 5 hectares farming Syrah, Grenache, Chardonnay, Viognier, and making wine with no chemical intervention whatsoever. Really hands-off. So the reds get pretty much all stainless steel ferments. Some of the reds get a little bit of old oak maturation, but for the most part, he's all about retaining freshness in the wines. So this is a straight Syrah, labeled purely under the Vin de France label, Andrea Collect. But yeah, a bit of a renegade, maverick winemaker, mohawk, chain smoker, hard party guy.
So when I think French winemaker,
the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
I don't know, chain smoker, party guy. I've met a couple of them.
Yeah. So this is cool. So this is actually my first look at the 19 here tonight. But I've loved everything he's done before. I like it a lot.
So for those playing at home, Syrah is Shiraz, as we know. It's just the French spelling of the Iranian town called Shiraz, where the grape gets its name from.
Yep.
Question though, we do see a bit of Syrah labelled wines in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, if you're an Aussie and you label your wine Syrah rather than Shiraz, is that just an indicator that I'm making it in the French style?
More than likely, yeah. I'm sure there's a clonal element that might come into it, but typically here in Australia, when you say Shiraz to anyone on the street, they're probably going to immediately sort of think big, heavy, hearty, spicy Barossa Shiraz, bold red fruit, a lot of tannin. Whereas I think a lot of guys that label their wine Syrah here in Australia are maybe looking more towards that Northern Rhone, powerful, brooding, silky, black pepper, savoury kind of thing going on, which is probably more common in the cooler climates here in Australia. We see a lot come out of sort of Yarra Valley, Macedon, out west, out in Orange and that kind of thing. Make some really good Syrah takes.
I do think you've rattled off the best quote of the night so far, a clonal element.
A clonal element.
That is just a phrase that rolls off the tongue.
Well, yeah, if they're taking French Syrah clones and making it like that, but they might be taking other clones that lend themselves more to warmer climate, big, heavy, intense wines. But to say that this is a typical French Syrah is not correct. Not right. Yeah,
one might say incorrect.
Yeah. The fact is that it's Syrah grapes, but even despite learning a lot of his winemaking in Beaujolais, working with Gamay predominantly and large components of carbonic maceration, which I touched on a little bit last week, but it's like whole berries. He doesn't use any whole berries in this wine in particular. He sort of presses off straight away, and again without any oak or anything going into it, it's more about just keeping that freshness to the wine.
Yes.
What I really enjoy about this is like, handmade, organically farmed, no additives at all. French Syrah from Ardèche for $40.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
It's one of those wines. Sometimes you'll throw a wine to me and I'll go, okay, I know I'm getting that, or like I'm really enjoying that. That's really, X, Y, Z. But there's a lot going on here. I couldn't quite figure this out the first night. If you'd put this in front of me blind and said, pick the varietal.
No.
I'm not going anywhere near Syrah.
What I really love about these wines and the wines of Jean Foyard and Guy Breton, there's this incredible purity of fruit towards them, where initially if you're thinking, hardcore out there natural winemaker, sleeping in the caravan, whatever else, blah, blah, blah. Like, you kind of already got this sort of preconceived, like, oh, this is going to be a cloudy or a hazy or a dirty, not necessarily complete wine. But this is just so soft and silky. And
It's really soft.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon I'm picking a bit of a penchant for yours.
Got that like Van der Swaff feel towards it.
You've we're up to episode 28 of After Hours, so we've done 28 wines across the course of the last 10 months or 8 months, whatever it's been. You have really picked out some very pretty, some very soft wines. Is that just like a coincidence, or is that something that you really rate in wines personally?
It's definitely something I rate in wines personally. But I like, in saying soft and pretty, what I like more is fruit. I like going, okay, this is what the fruit in this wine tastes like, or this is what the fruit of this particular place tastes like. When we tasted Louis Tiral's wine last week, which was just this beautiful crystalline take on Cool Climate Gamay. I'm not a particularly big fan of wines that are dominated by oak or anything like that, where it feels like you're really muting out the fruit. It feels like something's maybe covered up, or you're trying to push something out of the wine. Nothing feels hidden in this style of wine, which I think is really cool.
It's very honest.
Yeah,
and I think
and there's just nothing to hide behind.
Yeah, so he's growing in winemaking.
Yeah.
Which again, something we've spoken about quite a lot about that. Don't be an expert in one. I mean, try and be an expert in both when you can do one very well. But I think there's almost an element here of almost a heightened element of the earth that it's come from. Like I've never been there, obviously, but I'm sure if I walked around, I'd be like, okay, that makes a bit of sense.
But it also, what I also think, like along that note, is that you probably couldn't make wines like this if it wasn't for that farming in the first place. Like, I think this wine is already made in the vineyard, but before the grapes even come off, and then they come off and it's just left to do its own thing. Like, he's got quite not a famous quote, but he's got a really interesting quote in an article on eater.com. The article's titled "Andrea Kleck is a lazy bum, and that's why his wines taste so good." And I think in the first couple of sentences, he basically says that he's lazy and he doesn't like working hard. So he doesn't want to do anything to his wines.
I wish I could relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a foreign concept to me.
But really, I love it. Like, it's not, like, he's got his Outlook address on the back of the back of it there. No website, no Instagram page or anything like that.
You'll have to see it.
Yeah.
One of the things, as we sort of spoken about the nose and for a lesser extent the palate is quite big and pretty, but there's also like a real dryness and like this. It's a very fine tannin structure at the end, but there is like a real like top of my mouth is quite, I wouldn't say coating, but it is a little bit drying. Which is quite interesting. Just coming from the fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's not meant to be a big, long, rich style of wine. Like, he's not extracting massively, but at the same time, a lot of wines in this style that we see, not necessarily from Ardèche, but certainly in Loire and in Beaujolais and those sorts of places, that go more towards the whole berry carbonic side, get this really juicy, really fruity, really Ribena-esque fruit juice kind of thing that I think he kind of wants to steer away from as well. But I do get that really chalky tannin. It's worth noting that they're on quite rich limestone deposits. And we've had some wines from limestone here in Australia in the past, and I always get this really interesting like minerality that cuts through. And like there's a hint of saltiness that sort of dries out right on the end there, but still that nice big, pure blueberry, blackberry jam thing on the nose, but really elegant on the palate.
Yeah. And just to prove that we are live, the first points in a post-COVID 2020 Rugby League competition have gone to the mighty Parramatta Eels. Kick was converted, so that is Parramatta 6, The Brisbane No Hopers 0.
Wouldn't a converted try be 7? Oh, no, wait, this isn't real rugby. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I didn't go to private school. My dad doesn't own a yacht. Awesome. Any movements on the Instagram? So I monitor the Facebook comments. Jerry monitors the Instagram because people use their real names on Facebook, and I have no idea who's commenting on Instagram because it's all the wine this and the whiskey that.
We've got smart looking haircut, so that's two compliments to Scott's haircut and 1 compliment to my shirt.
Yep. So can we keep a tally?
And then one about tuning in again says my fave duo is back. So we now rank as the favorite duo. And the Wine About's books.
I do apologise, Wine About. We will find you another hobby moving forward. It's current compliment tally. I'm in the lead here.
And AJ Harding says, looking sharp, guys. So that's going to be 1 for both of us.
Okay, yep. I think
just going back to this wine, it's just really, really enjoyable. There's an element of seriousness, but that it's not supposed to be taken that seriously.
Yeah, I think we've spoken a lot about natural wine and the current Australian movement for natural wine. This is certainly natural wine, but it's not a new concept and it's not a new idea. Yeah. And the French have been doing it for forever. So I think, what you're saying, $40 on the shelf. Yeah. So that comes down to about 30, 34 for members in a 6-pack.
But I think the one thing I like about the way Andre makes wine and having sort of listened to a few interviews and stuff that he's done is I think it's each of the vintages do vary quite a bit in terms of what goes into each wine and how it does. And he even says himself he's just constantly learning and constantly seeing what's new and what's going to happen here and there. There's no this is who I am, this is what I do kind of feel to these wines. It's very much taken on place and vintage and how it reacts and what he wants to drink. And I think I really enjoy that in winemakers. If everyone should make exactly what they want to drink.
You've probably just provided the best definition of natural wine, out there.
Make what you want to drink.
Yeah, make wine that you want to drink. Yeah. That is easy, not easy to make, but that is defined by where it was grown and what the grapes want to do. Then make if you want to drink it, it's a good idea. If you wouldn't drink it, stick them back on the vine and have another go. Yeah,
or just make what you do want to drink.
So it's interesting. Awesome. I think there's a lot of people potentially Australians who are your age, much younger than me, getting into natural wine for the first time through places like the Oak Barrel and bars and DSE is back open for business again for 10 people until next week, which has been excellent news. But coming through Australian eyes, which is great. This is a really good, if you can plump for the $40. I think this is a really good example of going into the old world on a wine that you're going to enjoy. It's got all the tick boxes of organic and minimal intervention, all that sort of stuff that you're sort of or that's resonating with you, but made with centuries of history behind it. Because I think, obviously, I don't drink as much wine as you do, Joey. I always love going back to this sort of stuff because it just recalibrates not necessarily my palate, but my way of thinking about, natural wine. Is go, okay, this is where it comes from. This is where it's going. This is what certain things should maybe be. Not as a marker. You don't want to compare and pick one over the other, but just as a reference point. Okay. This is this, but this is also possible. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, obviously, without turning it into a full-blown rant or whatever, but we
full-blown rant.
We're pretty we have been guilty of it in the past here in the New World in Australia and other places of using that natural wine buzzword thing to cover a lot of maybe faults or mistakes in wines, and often people sort of maybe think of natural wine as this crazy, out there, whatever, crazy, wacky flavors and all the rest. I think you've probably got a slightly more conventional palate to what I do, but it's still I feel you can put wines like this in front of you and go, okay, it's organically fun, all hand done, bit of a crazy dude, no additives whatsoever, but it's clean as a whistle and it's fun to drink.
I love that backhand. Incredible backhand.
No,
You've
but-
got a slightly more conventional palate than I do.
Well, no, a palate to conventional wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again. That's all right, mates.
I do
We all know
conventional wine
all
as
the best.
well, but-
I know you do.
Yeah.
But we know all the best wine in the world comes from the region of Orange.
Yeah, because you've also abused me for trying to feed you natural wines.
Yes. Well, that time I ordered a Pinot from Orange. I ordered an orange Pinot.
No,
I got
so
an
we were
orange-
at a restaurant that will remain nameless.
a very good restaurant.
Very good restaurant.
With
Very good wine list.
Yeah, very good wine recommendations. But we were speaking different languages.
Yeah, and so Scott's glass of orange Pinot didn't come out as a red wine from the Pinot Noir grape hailing from a region in western New South Wales. It was a skin contact Pinot Gris.
Yeah, which I realised quite suddenly as it poured a sort of peachy orangey colour rather than transparent dark burgundy red.
What will Tom Ward do next?
Yep. Quick question on the Facebook here from Phil Brooks. Thoughts on the Jameson cask mates, like the stout cask, Scotty? Yes, Jameson, about 3 or 4 years ago, a little bit before that, but in the Australian market, actually, no, it was bigger than that, about 5 years ago, came to Australia with, a bunch of new releases. So they did like Welder's Dog, Cooper's Crows, sort of premium Jamesons. They were outside the old 12, 18-year-olds when they were running out of old stock. And part of what they did as well was the stout cask, part of the cask mates editions, where they put Jameson into like stout casks. They did one in collaboration with Young Henry's, because they did a lot of activations with Young Henry's. I remember Sydney Beer Week as well, when that was a thing. Did a lot of collaboration between Young Henry's and Jameson, and they did that. Personally, my opinions, Jameson was my love. It was the first whiskey I ever truly fell in love with when I was 18 years old. Funnily enough, it was Jameson and the brand on your T-shirt that you're wearing. That when all I could afford was the very, very cheapest option, so I'd wait until they went on like a 2 for $50 deal.
Yeah.
And bought whether it was Jack Daniels or Jameson. We're going back a good decade now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen playing at home, a decade and a bit. And I fell in love. That's how I fell in love with whiskey over other spirits, and then just fell in love with Jameson. I think Phil McNulty from The Wire had a lot to do with me falling in love with Jameson as well. And anyone who has seen one of the greatest TV shows of all time called The Wire, you'll understand why I felt that way. So, long way of answering your question, Phil, is that I love Jameson so much that I actually am not a huge fan of the cask editions, because they're adding something and taking away from that really grain-heavy, soft, easy drinking. Love the 12-year-old, love the old 18-year-olds, can't get them anymore. But personally, not as huge a fan on those cask finishes, and even the Welder's Dog, the Cooper's Crows, the whatever other one. So personally,
but I know it's safe.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of people do love those ones, but for me, I'd stick to the classic.
I've always had I always had a question based around that stout cask finish, because when I was working in Dublin a few years ago, it was all the rage. It was huge. Like, people were going mad for this Jameson stout cask finish, and then I'm sure that ABV plays a role in how much of that liquid penetrates wood. And I would imagine stout to be higher than your average beer, but lower than, say, a wine or a sherry or something like that. I wonder how much of an impact a stout has on a barrel to then put into a whiskey that's been aged in it, unless it was just to be a really wet cask that immediately got filled or something like that. Yeah,
it's funny. It's interesting. Like, when you look at all the beer casks, not just in Ireland, but in Australia, in America, in Scotland, all around the world, that have been used to mature whiskey, and it's always stout, or predominantly stout.
And higher amounts of sugar, higher amounts of alcohol.
There've been some IPA casks. Chichibu, Ichiro Okuda-san famously had a very, very good IPA cask from Japan, from the town of Chichibu in Japan, and his excellent distillery. But largely stout cask. We see it. We're about to see it. It's here in the country. It just hasn't arrived in store yet. It's on order. The Westwood Stout cask. From the American Single Malt from Portland, Oregon. Their stout cask, and they have a very big craft brewing scene there. The stout cask is excellent, and it adds something to it. We saw with Lark, with Wolf of the Willows,
Yeah.
And they've got a little collaboration where they give whiskey barrel to the brewery matures a stout whiskey, they give it back to Lark, who will finish one of their whiskies in it, and they sort of rotate it around. But I think
Wolf of the Willows do stouts at like 15% and stuff, right? They do heavy stouts.
And you're right on the high ABV, but it's the sugars and that sort of stuff as well. So I think stout casks lend themselves very well to whiskies, and certainly one of the better ones out of all the myriad of craft beer casks that we see around at the moment.
So just following up on the Instagram here, we've got Quaker's Hat says can't beat an organic option, which I definitely agree with there. Chatting with Philip and Matthias last night over in Germany in the Rheinhessen, we spoke a lot about organic farming and biodynamic farming and that sort of thing, and how I wouldn't say it's a new concept here in Australia, but there's definitely a lot of people now looking to convert their vineyards over, that sort of thing. But for those guys, it was like, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, especially there's regions like Germany, Austria, like they did speak on regions like the Mosel that do suffer quite intense climatic conditions, and it does get a little bit harder. But for them, it was just obvious. Just why not?
Yeah, I think if you can, you do it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, but and I don't know much about this, but pesticides and other methods that make your vineyard inorganic, they're shortcuts, right?
Yeah, it's poison.
Yeah, it's about placed in areas when we thought, okay, this is a pretty good idea. You get bigger yields, your fruit's bigger, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you went through that period, in decades past, you did it because it was easier, shortcut, it made sense. Now we know a little bit more. We are analysing, particularly in Australia, analysing our wines from a consumer, from a drinker's point of view, quite a bit more. And we're seeing actually flavour discrepancies between the two. Not only just in the mental aspect of I don't want that on my produce, what I consume, but there's a thing as well.
Yeah, and then Toppers Mountain also comes in this. Onion Fellows is good stuff. Toppers Mountain up in New England makes some incredible wines and doing some really fun stuff up there with Quivery. I know we're quite heavily affected by fires very recently, but I have been following quite closely on Instagram the road to recovery, and we're looking forward to getting some more stuff from you guys. Beautiful part of the world. Love it.
Got a question coming in from the Facebook for you, Joey, from Mitchell King. Thanks, Mitch, for your question. It's a two-parter. What's the biggest selling variant of wine at the Oak Barrel? This is, for Shiraz or Malbec or whatever. And secondly, and I think this is the probably the bigger one, do you think there will be a glut in wine due to lack of your usually bulk buyers, such as restaurants and that sort of thing? Have we seen a reduction in wine prices due to the current COVID coronavirus? I'm going to add to your question, Mitch, and throw it to Joey on that second parter, is post bushfires as well, because remember, bushfires has wiped out a lot. Some vineyards that existed this time last year don't exist this year. So, you would assume maybe there's a rise in price there. I'm talking, from a pure layman's. If the produce isn't there, maybe it's going to drive the price up. If then the demand isn't there, it's going to drive the price down. Where are we sitting at the moment? After you ask you the first one.
Yeah, I'll not get the first one out of the way, but the best-selling variant of wine is quite a hard one to judge here at the Oak Barrel, purely due to our wine selection. It can often be quite esoteric, and especially in store, customers that come and shop with us, they're often we love suggesting wines and pushing people towards wines that we're really enjoying at the moment. So we sell a lot of Grenache, a lot of Sangiovese, both Italian and Australian. I love Pinot Noir, so we sell a lot of Pinot Noir here. But
so just quickly, just to prove we're live update, someone that isn't Parramatta has scored. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on very quickly from that. Continue your sentence.
I know those people. But yeah, I don't know if I could put it down to purely just one certain varietal. It's a really hard one, but we seem to be smashing for probably 12 months ago now, or a bit longer than that. We decided to sort of clear out a section of the fridge and put in a couple of rows for red wines that we believe should be served cold. lower ABV, more sort of fruit forward styles, and that is a really big mover for us. The sort of chilled reds section of our store. Pet Nat is always going crazy. It seems like we're constantly selling out of Pet Nat. Lots of, when we get our hands on it, the Georgian stuff moves really well. But we work with a lot of producers that will release several different wines, and they'll often fly. We were really, really lucky at getting a second dab at Anton van Klopper's Lucy M wines out of the Adelaide Hills, and that sort of just came and went pretty quickly. But I mean, if I had to nail it down, I'd say I don't know what I'd say.
Pinot Noir.
Whoa.
But probably Shiraz.
Yeah.
I think it's tough to tell here at the Oak Barrel because we don't sell a lot of one thing.
Yeah,
there's not like one hero brand that is, if we lost access to it, it would ruin us. We sell a lot of different things, and that's not just in wine. It's in the spirits. It's in the beers. You don't want to look at our back end point of sale and product management system. There are so many SKUs and barcodes. It's an absolute nightmare.
But I still even after all this time, orange wine is still massive. And we're seeing it get better and better.
Well, the Astro Bunny is right up there every year. You want to pick one particular one. So getting on to your second part of your question, which maybe you spent a little bit of time on, and I'm adding into the bushfires thing here, Mitch, hope you don't mind. Bushfires potentially driving prices up. COVID potentially driving prices down. How have you seen the market?
It's way too early to tell.
These daiquiri times.
It's way too early to tell. I mean, I saw on my end, when this all went off, a lot of distributors offering discounts, on certain wines and that sort of thing to the places that were open, like ourselves. But like I said, we weren't necessarily doing the massive amounts of trade at the time. But I think when it does come to things like that, typically those discounts are generally passed on to you guys anyway. So I don't. It's a pretty tough question. I mean, restaurants I think will continue to keep buying. Maybe not at the quantities that they would have, but then you do have that bushfire element of we probably won't have as much wine, made this vintage in Australia.
Yeah.
So it's kind of going to go both ways in that we won't be selling as much wine, but there won't be as much wine to sell.
From this vintage, from the 2020.
From the 2020 vintage, just in Australia. But then the imports are going to be quite heavily affected as well. So it depends on how much is going to be coming in. I think it's really, since the lockdowns went in, I don't think there's been a day where either of us have really not sat there and monitored emails and buying patterns and just gone, okay, what's next? So no one knows. Producers don't know, distributors don't know, we don't know. It could go either way. The one thing that's kind of made me feel quite good about this whole thing is just how well communities like the wine producing community, the hospitality community, spirits communities rally together to try and help each other. I don't think there's anyone out there that's not trying to do the best for their customers or their clients or their producers. So
I think, and I just want to touch on something here, and certainly I don't think this is what you're alluding to, Mitch, in your question here, but it is something that I've heard, not in our community, like the Oak Barrel community, but in wider communities through other friends and families, is that little bit of opportunity was like, okay, so restaurants aren't buying wine anymore. That means the prices are going to drop. Great, I can take advantage of that. Now, to put things in a little bit of perspective here, the Monday after lockdowns were closed, and Joey and I don't think we'll ever forget that day, sitting out at some of Sydney's best bars, world-class bars, as news is filtering through from about 2:15 that everyone is out of a job as of, close that night type thing. Bizarre scenes. But the Monday after, directly after, Dan Murphy's and some of the chain groups had their biggest Monday, their biggest day in history, bigger than any, Christmas Eve, bigger than any, New Year's Eve, Father's Day Eve, Mother's Day, whatever it is, had their biggest day ever. Here at the Oak Barrel, we had one of the quietest days in living memory since, I've been here since 1956. I don't honestly have all the records back to then, but certainly in my time, one of the quietest days ever. So I think that was, for me, a bit of a sort of a look at, okay, who we deal with are small producers. And I think, Joe, you and I both spoke about this at the time. It's like, this is not a time to be taking advantage of those small producers. If there are cheaper prices to be had, and if it works for us, great. But we should be trying to pay market value for these products because, there's not a huge amount of margin to be let go. Like, I can't take 50% off all the whiskies in the store and expect to still be operating in a week's time. You can't expect producers to do that discount and still be operating. So I think we've got to be careful about that. And, I'm certainly not expecting to walk into bars at, what time do I finish on Monday? About 6 p.m. At 6:01 on Monday and expecting cheap drinks. Because, these, if anything, they should be more expensive to sort of cap up, or top up on what we've lost. So again, I think that's an opinion that comes from being a very small business and working with other very small businesses. The top end of town, 100%. Multinationals, I expect, my Reshers, should at least stay at the price it's been for the last 60 years rather than, going through the roof.
I think on saying like, will prices go up and down? When have we ever seen prices go down?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever seen prices go down.
And unique treat for prices to go down.
If they're going to go anywhere, they're probably going to go up. But yeah, what the big guys do, we don't really know. But I mean, in the circles that we sort of play in and the customers I know, like, not only will we never try and benefit off anything like that, but we'd get caught out straight away.
Yeah,
someone would look at it and just go, well, hey, what are these guys doing? And then whatever. So,
as a business that, like, to a certain extent runs off reputation, there's certain wines that, like, you would only get 6 bottles of. Certain whiskies I would only get 2 bottles of. If either one of us or anyone who works at the Oak Barrel is perceived to be a bit of an, excuse my French, a bit of a dickhead, we're going to be found out pretty quickly, and those allocations will dry up. And then, we can. I'll see you in Centrelink, basically.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that kind of answers that. But I'd say if anything, probably go up a little bit, purely just on the end of producers needing to put food on the table, and that I have no problem with, obviously.
Yeah.
And obviously 2020 we will look back on 2020 from a wine perspective here in Australia as something pretty unique for sure.
It's actually a very good comment because, and I'm talking about whiskey now. Very brief history of the Scotch whiskey industry. 1800s, great. 1898 crash, pretty shithouse. World Wars. 50s, 60s, genius. 80s, Scotch whiskey crash. Particularly 1983 pivot point. Sometimes you have people walk into the store and be like, hey, I'm looking for a vintage for my birthday. My birth year whiskey. Was like, oh, great. Yeah, what year were you born in? 1983. Oh, mate. Sorry, you're in a bit of trouble there. 1983, really big crash in Scotch whiskey. Distilleries, if they weren't closing down, were really ramping down their production. Anyone born this year who's looking for a 2020 vintage of wine or spirits or anything in like 25, 30 years' time, there's going to be some poor, and hopefully I'm still employed here at the Oak Barrel in 20, 30 years' time. You're going to be like, oh, mate, 2020, you should know by now. If, like, distilleries weren't closing down, you're looking for an Australian wine? Yeah, it got burnt to the ground that year, so no, it doesn't exist.
So some eau de vie. 2020 vintage eau de vie. That's kind of, I guess, the best way to finish it. But, like, we might be saying something completely different next week. Or, it could be anything, not completely different what we just had, but we could know a lot of different things next week. Oh, look, it's a week-to-week thing at the moment, which is excellent fun trying to plan big events before the end of the year. Whiskey fair?
Whiskey fair, yeah. It might even, it's going to, I'm not going to say, because I'll come back next week and it'll be different.
So this is going to be wine fair this year, guys?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Welcome to Wine Fair.
Janet's on arrival.
Yeah. Speaking of which, do you want another Janet?
No, I'm okay.
Or do you want to move on to...
I was actually... Quaker's Hat's been quite active in the chat there. It says, awesome, guys. Thanks for the amazing insight. And I think we've probably got some cold. And I was going to ask Quaker's Hat a question and just say, out of the pale ale or the Kolsch, I think that's got the orange label, what would be the go-to at 8:28 on a Thursday night?
Because I do have some other things here as well we can dip into. But yeah, Quaker's Hat, if you could give us a recommendation. We are also getting to that point of the night where Instagram will kick us off the live feed for an hour.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll be back. I think it's about 4 minutes from now. But yeah, Quaker's Hat, we're thirsty, mate. Don't take too long. And a quick score update to prove that we're live. There is exactly, or in fact, I think we're going to the video ref in some sport action.
How many referees does this stupid sport have?
Well, one. That was the whole problem. They're like the referees, there's only one, but they got their thing.
There's
and then there's a try for the mighty Parramatta Eels. Kick to come 10-6 against the Brisbane No-Hopers. Kolsch, thank you, Quaker's Hat. For those playing on the Facebook, yes, we are running 2 live streams. We have the Facebook, which you're seeing comments come up, and we're pushing comments to the live stream, but also on the Instagram, which is thoroughly annoying because you can't play too much around with Instagram. The Quaker's Hat is on that. So, Joey,
yeah.
Can you talk me through this beer when you get back? Beer's not something we go too in depth on this live stream, but it is a 1/3 of the business here. What do we got?
So this is Quaker's Hat Brewing Kolsch, 4.6 ABV, a delicate, lightly hopped German-style ale with refreshing hints of lemon. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, so for me, like one of the first craft beers I ever got into, going back a little while now when Four Pines were independently owned, was their Kolsch. Not a huge hoppy beer drinker. I actually think it comes down to the fact when I first got into craft beer in a big way about 9-10 years ago, there was a sense of let's throw hops at it. Yeah. Particularly in Australia, the more hops the better. And I honestly got a bit hopped out. And at that point in time, I was spending a lot of time in music venues. So, if it had rushes on tap, bloody genius. No hops were harmed in the making of my rushes. But I think moving forward, we're like the industry's come to such a maturity now that there are so many great things coming up. But I still think there's place for, lagers and Kolsch's and, more traditional, sessionable style of beers, but just done well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, Charlie. I think that's kind of it. I mean, we work in a craft beer store. I'll still walk into other bottle stores and even this store sometimes and go, what is going on here? A watermelon, blueberry, barrel-aged chocolate mocha...
Pumpkin surprise.
Pumpkin something or other. I'm like...
With a Star Wars character
is going on
in front of the label normally.
But, yeah. And then sometimes, I think we always say it's pretty interesting when we might go out to a bar or whatever, you'll drink wine, I'll drink beer, and often the beer guy will drink spirits, which is quite odd. But yeah, I'm a big fan for
it's a holiday, isn't it? It's something a little bit different.
Yeah. Super just crisp, clean, ultra enjoyable. Yeah, Pomo says, loving Pirate Life Lager. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Really, really cool.
And I mean, it's a funny industry, the craft beer. It's a little bit younger than even the modern spirits industry in Australia, and certainly the wine industry is right. Like, it's still very, very young. And I do think, just prompted by the Pirate Life comment there is still a little bit of tall poppy, I think, in it.
About breweries selling
selling to a multinational. There are cases where brewery sells to a multinational, they go national, maybe international sometimes. Corners are cut, there's a bit of quality. I'm not going to say that doesn't ever happen, but in cases where it doesn't happen and the quality stays there, which for me, Pirate Life are an example of that. I think Bolter so far an example of that, as that your Feral example of that as well. We shouldn't be sort of throwing under the bus or, denigrating anyone who has done such a good job that they've got the payday that they so thoroughly deserve.
Especially in such a competitive market like craft beer.
So competitive.
Yeah.
So, but that's just Scotty's uninformed craft beer comment of the day. But it's just something I hate in in all spectres of booze in general. We've got 10 seconds on the Instagram live feed before we have to restart that, so we'll be back in a second. We are still live. It is Brisbane No Hopers 6, Parramatta Eels 10 in live sports back here in Australia. We'll be back in a second. Facebook, stand by while I just jump up and get way too close to the camera. That's all right. Oh, no, don't want to do that. Share to... Yep, beautiful. That looks good to me. Yep. Joey, keep talking, would you? Well,
yeah, well, look, so this is basically what Scott's torso looks like up really, really closely.
I will say this is COVID era torso. There's no exercise done in the making of this torso. Right,
I'm not doing any exercise before COVID, though.
Yeah, but I get an excuse now.
That's true. Yeah. I found, like, without all of the, like, really lovely restaurants to go out and dine in all the time, that, you know, just eating tuna on toast at home, you tend to lose a little bit of weight as well.
I've been enjoying sardines.
Yeah,
on
sardines are good.
Cream cheese on Cruscats. Bloody, just a really good time, basically.
Oh, sardines are great. I really enjoy them. But yeah, no, I think I think one day we're going to have to go and track down someone that does know what they're talking about for craft beer and bring them on. Because I would just love to get an hour and a half, 2 hours of craft beer, you know, knowledge and insight.
Yeah.
That we probably just don't see that often.
So throw it to the crowd. Is there anyone out there that knows a thing or two about craft beer that would be willing to put up with us for about an hour and a half some weekday nights in the next couple of weeks?
Brewers, reps, enthusiasts, all the rest, but...
What about a certain staff member that used to work at Bitterfew that works here?
Yeah.
Can we convince her?
Maybe.
No.
That'll be fun. But, yeah, I don't know. Beer, like it, drink it, kind of thing.
If it looks good, tastes good, smells good, put it in your mouth.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Now, on the wines, how is the beer, by the way? Can I have a bit?
I haven't opened it yet.
I haven't opened it yet. What sort of after hours is this where there's unopened bottles sitting on the table?
This is the Quaker's Hat Kolsch.
So where's Quaker's Hat located?
Manly Vale.
Manly Vale.
Oh, there you go.
That's better than Manly.
Got a little brewery just opened up near me the other day, actually.
Oh, yeah.
In Balmain.
Balmain?
Yeah.
What's that called?
I don't know. I read about it on Broadsheet or something like that. I had their beers on the weekend. It was really nice. But looking forward...
I was about to say, well, like at a pub or...
No, I didn't bought them from the shop.
Yeah.
But looking forward to visiting when we do get there.
Yes. Oh, look, the list has been... it's getting quite exhaustive at the moment.
And for two people that frequent the same 3 bars on a regular occasion, it's going to be quite hard to get to.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. Well, but yeah, bit of craft beer. Now, Joey, I have some things here. I've got a bit of a rum and some Armagnac.
Okay.
Do you maybe want to have a little bit of a sneaky De Rose Armagnac ahead of a tasting that's coming up next week?
Is it quite old?
No.
Is it older than me?
No.
Okay. Well, that's right.
Yeah. So, yes, we have been doing a lot of live events, whether they're live streams like this chit chat here or virtual tastings in the past little while. Is that a question that you want to answer?
Are we getting the Yulees Major Mac in? I dare say so.
Probably.
It's just a matter of when at the moment. But yeah, also big fan of the Yulees beers.
So we're doing a lot of virtual tastings. It's actually something that we were considering about this time last year. The whole reason After Hours got off the ground was because people kept asking us to do something like this, but also because we wanted to try, going live and what that would mean and how that would work. So we didn't end up doing it for tastings while we were doing physical tastings. Because I refused to wear a Madonna mic for the audio, and you move around too much to have a static camera.
That's true, yeah.
So there was a few issues with that. Obviously being forced into this corner and to get our asses into gear during this current lockdown period. But it's something that we're going to be doing moving forward, because one thing I love about the tastings is you can have someone in Melbourne who can't get here tonight, but I can have an idea or you can have an idea half an hour ago. We can get them on a live chat. We can have a little bit of fun. Also works internationally. We've had a number of international guests. You mentioned earlier about Captain Riesling talking from Germany last night. We've had, Alexandra Gabriel from Plantation coming in from France. Various people from the UK, Dave Worthington, all sorts of things. And next Wednesday, we are very, very privileged to have the one, the only Mark DeRose of the DeRose Armagnac House calling in from France to take us through a few of his favourite Armagnacs. Works out pretty well. He was actually meant to be here this week. We'd actually penciled in tomorrow, about 3 months ago, a little bit 4 months ago, as a DeRose tasting out the back here. That obviously didn't happen because he's not allowed to get on a plane and come here. And if he did, we couldn't have 44 people in the back room to host him. So we're getting him on the live stream. But I love that idea of, getting people from all over the world and really using technology. It seems a little bit silly that it's taken this long and a thing like this. And yes, we've done tastings with people on Skype in the back room before.
It's just such an awkward vibe.
It's an awkward vibe when you've got a room full of people and then there's someone on Skype who can't hear you and the internet goes down, all that sort of stuff. It's forced us to get it right, basically. So we're doing a number of Armagnacs from 60s, 70s, 80s, noughties, and a 12-year-old, a 1966 Armagnac. That's a 53-year-old. That's older than me. It's older than Joey. Surprising. It is. I am actually younger than 53. I'm not by much, but I am younger, which is going to be excellent. So I thought tonight to sort of whet our palates, because even though I did maybe nose a couple of them while we were breaking down the bottles, I haven't actually tried any of them. But I thought we'd bring up one of my favourites, which is actually quite a young Armagnac from DeRose. It's a 2000 vintage.
Turn of the century.
Turn of the millennium. Turn of the decade, whatever you want to call it. Now, bit of background here. Trying to pour a little bit in you. I'll talk about Armagnac in a sense. Essentially, Armagnac is it's a brandy. Like cognac comes from the Cognac or Champagne region of northern France. Armagnac comes from the Armagnac region of France. Uses sometimes Colombard, but predominantly Ugni Blanc grapes, just like cognac. But DeRose is quite an interesting little house. It's actually what's that one? I think I know who that is, and that goes on my compliment tally. Thank you very much, Raquel. I will take that for buy that one for $1.
There were no names specified.
That's all right. No, I'll take that for $1. So what we're talking about here is essentially an independent bottler in, if we talk about other spirits, particularly whiskey terms. Very, very brief history. Tune in next Wednesday at 7 o'clock if you want to hear a proper history by someone who has been at the pinnacle of the Armagnac, who was president of the Armagnac Society for many years, Mark DeRose. But back in the day, Armagnac is famous for having these mobile alembic stills. So you have growers who grow grapes they didn't want to use for wines, or they had or they didn't want to buy a still. They had these mobile stills that would come around to your farm, distill your Armagnac for you, and then you put it into barrels and let it go. So this is sort of, DeRose is sort of paying homage to that element, is people who have grapes they want to get rid of or don't have any use for, they will come and buy those grapes and distill them. So DeRose doesn't grow grapes, they just distill it and buy them. And so you have all these different vintages from all these different very, very tiny producers around the Armagnac region. And they will drill down onto the fact that they can tell you what grapes went into it, how big the plot of land was, where the the makeup of the soil, what the name of the person who farmed the grapes were. Released at cask strength often. So we're at about 50% for this one. And no two DeRose are the same. So this is a 2000 vintage from Domaine de Puilas. It's about 50%, did I say?
50, yeah.
50%. It was bottled November 2018, I think. 16 is a little bit. So it's actually about a 16-year-old, even though it's a 2000. But you just get such a variety. No two vintages are ever the same. Bottled essentially to order a lot of the time, but excellent. And I'm not an expert in Armagnac, so I'm not going to go too deep into it apart from just having a nice drink and hopefully making you a little bit envious that I'm drinking it and you're not. But as a bit of a precursor to sort of whet my appetite for next Wednesday, when the King of Armagnac, who has been in our back room, and I was looking forward to it and quite excited about getting him to sign his board again. We can't do that, so it's going to be good fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. I find like with Armagnacs like this, and it's something that I've had a few discussions about here and there about drinking old wines from the Jura and Vignon, those sorts of things. Like I've been lucky enough to taste stuff back from the 50s, 60s, that kind of thing. And whilst what is in that glass, might taste a certain way, shape or form, and some people might like it, some people might not, I really, really enjoy, drinking something, but also thinking of what that person was doing 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago and how different things were when they were making this that I'm drinking today. That's pretty unreal.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's one of my favourite things about Armagnac. Yes, and a quick update. Yes, it is half-time in the rugby league. Thank you for prompting me there. The mighty Parramatta Eels are 12, Brisbane No Hopers 6. One of my favourite things about Armagnac is actually comes down to nothing to do with production or soil or grape type or anything. It's actually to do with legislation. So in cognac, and obviously cognac is the biggest French brandy, export. And actually, I think they export more cognac than they drink in France. They don't drink a lot of cognac. There's some very strict rules about cognac. You have to distill during certain times of the year. If you want to put a vintage that these grapes were grown in XYZ year, you actually have the cognac authority will come down, place a clamp on your barrel, and they have the key. So if you want to check it, they need to come down and open that. It's to ensure that vintage is the vintage. In Armagnac, they're a little bit more lax. So when in cognac you get terms like VS, VSOP, Haas d'Age, which is the French term for extra age, which means sort of like older than VSOP. It's essentially like a lot of people blending different vintages together, and you get very beautiful products. With Armagnac, without that legislation, if you got a 6, and it refers to the grapes grown. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about from like October to late November, December is the vintage for Armagnac grapes. Around that time.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so I mean, there is a potential that the grapes might have been distilled, say this is 2000, they might have been distilled in 2001, early 2001, if they were the last ones to go. So it refers to the growing of the grapes. But it means you get all these excellent vintages. And if I take a quick look to my left here, I've got bottles on the shelf for like 64, 63, 62 for less than sort of $500. So some from $400, which is unbelievable. For grapes that were grown
60 years ago,
50, 60 years ago.
That's pretty wild.
It is unbelievable. And that's something that you don't see. And I think as a part of it's down to the demand. Armagnac's drunk domestically in France. It's not always exported, certainly not exported to the extent that cognac is. We are starting to see a bit of that change. Certain vintages, 66 was really popular. That price is through the roof, and 66 for the people at least that we deal with is pretty much gone now for Armagnac. It's going to be, again, don't come to me and say, hey, I'd like a 1966 Armagnac for sub $300. 12 months ago, absolutely, not anymore. And particularly with who we're working with, 1980, 1970, 1960, pretty much anything.
The 0 years.
Anything on the vintage year. The first imports that came in January are gone. And they're coming in. And so Armagnac is starting to get to that point where we're running out of stocks, essentially, for what is available. So if you do want a Berkey Armagnac, do it pretty soon, because it's only going to get more expensive. But yeah, I mean, there's some incredible value. Like I'm just looking at the shelf again here in 1989, which, it's off vintage now, but it wasn't, 5 months ago. $140. 139, so that's like 125 with members price for something, for grapes that were grown 30 years ago that someone farmed on a vineyard that had been there for a lot longer than 30 years ago. Someone farmed them, someone distilled them, set in oak, probably jumped in and out, might have seen a bit of glass. You can do that in cognac and brandy, who knows? But that is such a time warp, and it's very, very special. Why it's so special in Armagnac is because it's $125. You want a 1989 or a 30-year-old Scotch whiskey.
What's an 89 Macallan set you back these days?
If you have to win the right to be able to get access to it to buy it, let alone the price. But you're not talking 3 figures; you're talking well into 4 figures at that point.
Yeah. Whiskey Wine Hustle gives us a big wave as well. G'day, Nath. Good to meet you today.
Oh yeah, g'day mate. How you doing?
Yeah. I think I replied to his Instagram message.
Twofold. Is the whiskey that you should always have at home. What was the other question?
What goes into Pappy?
Pappy goes into Pappy, but Buffalo Trace has 4 or 5 mash bills, and the wheated mash bill that goes into Pappy Van Winkle, and also goes into Weller and Willem de Roo Weller whiskies. The difference between Weller and Pappy Van Winkle is the warehousing spots, and there are certain warehouses that Pappy Van Winkle has to come from, and there's certain insulation and things that was quite dramatic. And developmental at the time that they implemented those warehouses, and gives Pappy that unique taste. So that's that question. That if you're not Nath from Whiskey Wine Hustle, you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. But answering a question from a little bit earlier today. Cheers, Quaker's Hat back in the room. We are enjoying some Kolsch. It's good. I love it having 4 glasses on the go at the same time. You love to see it.
Keeps you busy.
It does keep me busy, and I'm nothing if not busy. Doing my whole life is to try and give the illusion of being busy when actually just bludging.
It's such an arbitrary thing to really drill down into Armagnac vintages, because, of course, this, De Rose is a bottler or distiller?
A bottler, essentially.
A bottler.
So
they're bottling distilled grape spirit from different...
Yeah, different farms, different houses, different maisons, as they call them in France.
So, how far down the rabbit hole could you actually go to going, what was Domaine de Pouillas doing in 2000 in their vineyard that would give this spirit its characteristics?
Incredibly.
That is insane.
And this is a sample bottle. This is 200 mils. Came out of a sample pack that I bought. They're full-size bottles. They come with a neck tag that has, some pretty concise new information about the hectareage, who owns it, the soil composition, what grapes went into it, or what percentage it was distilled to. It's all there, and that's what I am.
Sounds like a good way to just smash out 2 years of your life.
Oh yeah,
studying Armagnac vintages.
This is why we're doing an Armagnac tonight, because when Marc DeRose comes on Wednesday night live from France, it's going to be about 10 a.m. where he's from. We're going to drill him. He's not he's going to get some pretty nerdy questions about different things. But I mean, this is it's actually one of so Armagnac, and you can see it quite linear. And there's a great producer called Delord, who are bigger for us, still quite a small producer by Armagnac vintages, by scales, but big for us. But they have pretty much a vintage of everything, because they grow their own grapes and they actually buy in grapes from other places as well. And you can see this real, almost like a graph of Armagnac, because Armagnac, you're using French oak, and you're not unlike a whiskey where you're throwing ex-sherry cask, ex-bourbon cask, ex-wine, ex-fortified, all that sort of thing. You're just using old oak and new oak. So off the still, you'll throw some new oak at it to calm the spirit down. If you think, actually, I want this to go for a little while, you throw some very old oak at it, let it mellow without giving too much of the big spice from it, or all that sort of thing. So
there's no seasoned oak in there. There's no sherry. There's no.
It's Armagnac seasoned oak.
Yeah.
So what you actually see is, and I've been lucky enough to do this, is going through, skipping every 5 years or every couple of years. You see stuff currently from the noughties is really big and bright and fruity, and the 90s starts to mellow out a bit. The 80s is getting really you start to see real oak influence come through. The 70s, funnily enough, almost gets a little bit brighter. The fruit starts to come through again. And then at the 60s, it's all church pews and dried flowers and all that sort of thing. You see this wave graph of what's happening there.
Do you think that was to fulfill trends at the time?
I don't know. I think it's almost an element of we've got all this thing, and this is what Armagnac that's been sitting around in the barrel for 50 years. This is what it tastes like.
Yeah,
This is what Armagnac from 40 years ago, and so they're just bottling what they've got. Which brings me back to some of my favourite de Rose Armagnacs. They do some very good old Armagnacs. Some stuff in the 70s has been unbelievable. There was a 1980 by La Poste that actually won Best Spirits in the world at one of the American Spirit competitions about 5 years ago. But I love the 2000s, the 04s, a few of those really cool ones, because they're really muscular. They're really honest examples of Armagnac from great grapes, from great farms, without the oak influence. And it's not if you just drink Armagnac, and it's easy to do. You can't just drink whiskey that's 30 years plus. You can just drink Armagnac that's 30 years plus if you want to. But yeah, I think it's just a big, and particularly what I say, it's a flat 50%. It's a window into something that I wouldn't get to try unless I get on a plane and go to Armagnac, which I'm not allowed to do at the moment.
But it's also like, I also kind of like it because it's quite puzzling to, probably put it break down into a generalized tasting note of saying, oh yeah, your bourbon drinker would like this, or your, distinctly Armagnac.
It is, yeah. And again,
and it's creamy and it's rich and it's luscious, but it's not sweet.
No.
And it's fruit forward and it's, peachy and light, but it's still complex.
Yeah. This is quite again, stealing one of your favourite words, a very pretty Armagnac. But as a general rule, and while I think Armagnac sells quite well here at the Oak Barrel, which certainly outstrips Cognac by a long way, is Cognac is higher up. It's a bit more inland, so the fruit comes through a little bit more in the end result. In Armagnac, it's by the coast or very close to the coast. It's much lower altitude. The soil is far sandier, so you get those earthy notes coming through a lot of the time from the fruit, which, at the Oak Barrel, a lot of our Armagnac buyers are coming from a whiskey background, and it just makes a lot more sense. It's got a vintage on it. It's got that earth, that grunt to it. This, for me, is actually quite a pretty, quite lifted Armagnac. But yeah, again, I don't want to go too much into it because I'll be found out on my Armagnac knowledge pretty quickly. But yeah, certainly. And so we've sent out a lot of packs. We're into our again another bottle here to crack tonight to get packing. But even if you're not involved, it'll be live streamed on the Facebook at Oak Barrel and it's going to be up there for eternity afterwards. But it's going to be for me. I know you were very excited about Riesling last night. I'm incredibly excited to talk about this. Paul, just to jump in there before you say that, Paul Leyland, who I know has bought a couple of Armagnacs. The 79 has been his favourite so far out of the Armagnacs. So, and this what I love about de Rose. No two are ever the same. There's always something new to try.
And then off the back of that, Whiskyography comes in and says, "What's an entry-level Armagnac?" What is your Wednesday night Armagnac?
I'd look at Delord, because they're all at 40%, but they'll give you an idea. And being at 40%, they're not as expensive as some of the de Rose. Whiskyography, I'm going to guess, has a bit of a whiskey background. If you consider de Rose to be the Adelphi of Armagnac producers, as sort of in correlation to a whiskey producer, Delord would almost be like the Gordon MacPhail, where it's more entry level. They've got filling contracts. You can get the Lingwood 15 year in, year out. There's a Mortlake 15 sitting around the corner. The new discovery Glenrothes 11-year-old is going to be there. Excuse me, to give you an idea and appreciation of what Armagnac is. And as I said, you can buy some of the 30 years old for $130, $140. But like the younger vintages, certainly come into sub 100. But I think, Delord is an excellent brand to just get your head around it. They also do miniatures. I think we've sold it at the moment, but there was a 1985.
50 ones and stuff.
Yeah, 51 1985 miniature that I think was...
There's some of these kicking around.
Yeah. So it's something that... there's another shipment, particularly with the producers that we deal with, mid-June, I believe. There's more stuff coming in where we'll sort of pump up again. There are still a couple of sets left for the Armagnac tasting. $100 and you'll get five Armagnacs dating from their Grand Assemblage, which is Marc de Rose's own creation, a 12-year-old, into an 04, an 80-something, a 73, I think it is, and a 66. which incredible value for what they are for $100 for 30 mils of each of them. But yeah, there's a few kicking around.
That's awesome. I think like just going off the back of that, you got to change the thing.
Yep, low battery. That's right.
It's really kind of opened my eyes and probably yours as well. This whole virtual tasting pack thing, send out. It's kind of blowing the roof off tasting possibilities, in the sense of like, if we're keen and the producers are keen, then we can make it happen in 24 hours, sort of thing.
And if you get
that's unreal.
And there is and it's so special. I think we don't always celebrate it here, and I'm probably guilty of this a little bit as well. It's so special to have an international guest out, whether that person is from America or Scotland or France or Germany. The costs and the time and the commitment that it takes to get from Europe or America, Japan, even places closer than that to Australia, it's a big deal. And we sort of take it for granted a little bit.
And a lot of these events like that we were doing in the tasting room were planned 6, 8, 12 weeks in advance.
Sometimes
for an hour and a half tasting event.
When we talk about like DeRose, and he was meant to be here this week, virtual tasting tomorrow, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That was January. We were talking about that, locking in dates, because obviously you got to pack as much into his trip. So visit all the bars during the day, speak to bartenders when they get busy at night, come over here, do a tasting to public. So it takes a long time. I think when restrictions lift and we can do some substantial tastings in the back room again, we will still be doing virtual tastings. I think it's such a great idea, and it's been so much fun as well. I've had a lot of fun carrying on with this sort of thing, and to be able to call up international guests and be like, hey, what are you doing at 10 a.m. next Wednesday?
Yeah.
You got these around. I've got 60 people that want to drink them along with you and ask you some questions. It's the future.
I think that's what happened last night. Like I said, probably at the very start, but we were just supposed to have Matthias there, who was helped start at the wineries there, and Philip Wittman, the owner and winemaker of the estate, just walked into the room.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, just took it to another level. It was unreal.
I highly recommend you going to oakbarrel.com.au/live and reliving that Riesling tasting. It's pretty special.
We do have the bottles here in the store as well.
Yeah, I was sitting at the back with headphones on, just getting that in. Now, I've seen a bit of a comment. I can't quite make out the name there, Joe, but do you want to read that out for us?
So Eduardo Redinho says, hello from Brazil. So there you go. Just off the back of that.
Yeah. G'day, mate. How you doing? Welcome. It's lovely to talk to you here from all the way in Sydney, Australia. I hope you're doing all right. Have something in front of you. I know Brazil is having a bit of a tough time at the moment. So, mate, I hope you're keeping safe and keep the cachaça distilleries open because we do like a bit of cachaça.
I love cachaça.
Bit of fun here. Bit of claret as well from Haiti. We love those sort of rum equivalents, regional equivalents. But yeah, hope Brazil is doing okay. Quick score update, just to confirm we are live. It is Parramatta, the Mighty Eels 16, the Brisbane No Hopers 6. The conversion has been taken there. So, yeah, lots of fun.
How weird is sport without the crowd?
It is. But it almost feels weird to have it on and happening. And the fact that, if I wanted to, there might be a bar that has only 8 people in it tonight, and we could go and have a dinner and a drink at a bar. And in only I can count them on my hands. I can count the sleeps on my hands. Where we can go and just have a drink. Simple, but no standing up, no dancing, no kissing people, Joey.
So I don't do any of that anyway. Pre-8
But just don't do it. Just don't do it.
No, this is awesome. Like, it's just like, it's always fun. I feel like it's always, we drink a lot of whiskey and spirits and all that sort of thing. I feel like every time you drink an Armagnac, you kind of just take that split second and go, okay, what is this? Hang on, what is it that we're drinking? Like, you kind of have a little bit of an extra thought about the whole thing.
And I think it's because we don't drink as much of it, as you say, but there's an Armagnac taste. There is an Armagnac aroma, and it's different to brandy. It's different to Australian brandy. It's different to cognac. There are regional differences that are quite important. And so, we've been big fans of Armagnac. As I said before, we will sell, I reckon it's close to 10 times as much as we do cognac. which is probably the opposite of most stores that have both in Australia. Cognac has the name, but I fell in love with it about 5 years ago.
Is there like a like a Hennessy equivalent in Armagnac? Really, like is there a big brand mass produced? Not there's anything wrong with Hennessy, but I mean that's your kind of go-to off the back of cognac, isn't it?
There is. We don't see it here. It is available here through the chains, but it's big in France. The name escapes me right now, but I'm sure a quick Google at home could figure that out. But it comes down to the fact that cognac is exported and Armagnac is what you drink at home.
Right.
So vast majority of Armagnac is domestic production, whereas cognac, because it is exported to other parts of Europe, to America, to China, particularly big cognac consumers, wider Asia, to Australia. When you're exporting, you're selling France, right? Yeah. You're selling the culture. You want it to be flashy. You want it to be a little bit, over the top. You tailor certain things to certain markets. That's why marketing people get the big bucks. With Armagnac, it's drunk by French people. So you put it in a bottle, stick a label on it, write the name on it, maybe write the bloke who made it as well, where it came from, done, because you're selling it to the French people. So for me...
no nightclubs.
Yeah, no nightclubs. Not in... what's the jugs? What's the cognac, the Hennessy jugs mixed with? I forget what they are.
Anything, really.
Yeah, God knows. Not to say there aren't cognac producers. I mean, I can look on the shelf here. Paul Girard, but probably my favourite, Jean Gros, Cognac de Gros Perrin, which is Jean Gros Perrin. He's 1980 cognac, and he has a couple of vintages which are unbelievable. So he's gone through that whole rigmarole of getting a cognac vintage. I would put them up against any cognac, any Armagnac, any whiskey, and say this is as good a quality. You pay more because they are much rarer, those vintages. And he actually has a couple of cognacs that are a little bit cheeky that we've had come through the store that were just called like number 48 or number 36 or number 65.
That's the vintage, right?
He can't call it a 1948 vintage legally because it was distilled by some family. It was distilled at some vineyard, kept by the family as personal stocks. Left under the house, didn't drink it for whatever reason, forgotten about. The kids or the grandkids, whatever it was, have got no use for it. They sell it on to Gros Perrin, who's again essentially like a De Rose, and then he, will bottle it. Can't call it a 48 because it didn't have the clamp, but it was distilled in 1948, so he calls it number 48, and you read between the lines there. Which, very, very good value for certain things. But they don't not exist in cognac. They're just harder to come by, and you pay for it. You pay for it. I think that 1980 is close to about $400. I think can't quite see it there, but it's $300 to $400 somewhere there. Excellent juice. Has a little wisp of smoke at the end due to the barrel char, which you don't see very often in cognac. But sort of caught me by surprise first time I tried it. There's a lot of differences, but if you can't tell, I'm quite excited about this whole carry-on and about Wednesday.
It's going to be unreal.
Yeah.
It's still one of my favourite virtual tastings that we've done and gotten off the ground was Alexandra Gabriel with Plantation. I was doing the same thing. I was sat out the back there with a pair of headphones in, and I couldn't even keep up with the tasting because his descriptions and his history and the way that he spoke about his own product, obviously, but was quite mesmerizing. I feel like this might go a very similar direction.
Yeah, I think passion comes through. I think it was quite interesting. And again, this is all live at oakbarrel.com.au/live. If you want to go and relive that one, you can tell that about 10, 20 minutes to go because it's like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, about 10:30, 11 by the time we're wrapping up. Someone has told him that actually needs to go and do some work. And so he's starting to rush through and his eyes start darting off to somewhere off camera because there's quite obviously someone going, Alexandra, wrap this up. We need to do stuff here in the distillery. But he did invite everyone to his chateau, the Maison France Chateau. As you do, because
come around to my chateau.
All his kids have grown up and left. So I got the vibe he was a little bit lonely. Would love to have some things. So I don't think he realises it, but there's about 60 Australians rocking up at his chateau as soon as this is all over with, which he might regret, but I'm going to have a bloody good time.
It's also not going to be surprising if he can fit 60 people in the chateau.
Oh, mate, like we spoke about caravans in vineyards, and you have long confided in me that you could see yourself in a swag sleeping in vineyards. So I don't think I have a problem with that. I don't think I have a problem with that.
I just think he might have 60 spare rooms.
Oh, he might.
In his chateau.
Yeah, he might well do.
Delicious.
I'm going back to this a couple of times. It's if you've never tried an Armagnac before, and you are nearby the Oak Barrel at any point in time in the next couple of months, we'll always try and have something open. I know I've got some older vintages in smaller things. We're not going to polish this one off tonight, but you come by and mention it to myself or Joey to be under the counter and say, mate, I heard you talking about Armagnac, and I sort of, piqued my interest, but I've obviously never tried one before. Do you have any? It's like, absolutely. We'll give you a dram. Rambling Rascals, when they reopen, go down there, buy an imp of something French and distilled.
That is such a cool back bar.
It's
Rascals,
cool
it's awesome.
And like people associate Rascals with, like really well-priced tinnies and Mary's burgers and just incredibly good decadent vibes. But it's a seriously good spirits back bar there.
Great.
And I think if you only go there, once or twice, you sort of miss it. It takes until you sit at the bar on a quieter night and look up and go, oh, shit. Yeah. There is some serious booze here from some serious vintages. Another one on the exhaustive list of places that I'm looking forward to going to in the next... June's going to be a big month. It's going to be a really big month.
Sometimes I think about like bars that have that same sort of vibe to them where like excellent, sit down, chill, smash a few beers, have a bite to eat. Button... Again, you sit down there, you look at that pack bar. Whoa,
rum!
It's unbelievable. Burrow,
I don't think you can not notice it at Burrow because you're surrounded by it. Ever since they put in that back,
but you could totally go in and just like sit down and have a great time at Burrow without realizing what it actually is.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah,
I think still the biggest collection of Adelphi whiskies in Australia. So biggest collection of open Adelphi whiskies in Australia, and some might suggest the Southern Hemisphere. I didn't say that because I certainly can't back it up because I've done no research, but I'm just going to throw that one out there. If I'm wrong, you tell me. But yeah, excellent bar. And doing some excellent, what I need to sign myself up for, Bar doing some very good virtual cocktail classes, which I hope they continue to do moving forward, because I certainly need to learn how to make cocktails better. I've tried it in this period, in this daiquiri time, but my daiquiris are not as good as bar daiquiris. My martinis are not as good as barbershop martinis.
No.
My Janet's not as good as Wild Rover.
Terrible.
I made
They're not terrible. They taste like someone put some cold vermouth and gin into a glass and got away with it.
If there was an encouragement award, I wouldn't get it. I'd probably be listed for the encouragement award, but it wouldn't go to me in terms of martini making. Bitters. Bitters, just on that note, I'm very interested in bitters. If anyone's a bitters expert out there, not only in just applying bitters in certain cocktail situations and creations, I would love to have a little bit of insight into creating bitters and what are some key botanicals. Been playing around a little bit at home with just, macerating certain bits of tree and bark and fruit and flora and, things into vodka to see how they come out. But I'd be very interested if anyone's a bitters expert, and I've done a little bit of looking on this. I've come up a little bit short. Anyone knows any excellent bitters books, on the history and the production? I'd be very interested to see that. It's a question you've probably never heard before.
What is the end game for bitters really? I do like bitters, but could there ever be another Angostura?
No, I mean? I don't think
that's in every single bar across the planet.
I don't think that's what you go for. You go for what Nav Singh at Domaine Simar / Tasmanian Bitters Company has gone for. Is gone, okay, we're going to make a bitter out of kombu, local, intrinsically Tasmanian seaweed bitter. Kombu is sort of like another style of seaweed. And whatever drink you have, you're going to put that into, it's going to drag to seaweed waste. So I kind of like that idea of just like what we do with wine and with spirits, giving them some sort of regionality. if you can make an old fashioned with bitters, great. What if you made an old fashioned with Australian bitters that came from the same place as the whiskey came from?
Like,
I just think like it's. I mean, we're talking rabbit hole. We're getting a little bit silly, but I just like we do it with all sorts of weird stuff.
no, like it's super cool.
He says quite defiantly at the side of the mouth there.
It's just like it's the most niche thing ever.
Yes, it is. Moving on quite
Sir,
quickly.
Would you like a local gin? No. Sir, would you like a local bitters?
Yeah. Would you like Surrey Hills plant shrub bitters with your martini, sir?
How are your bitter sales going? Oh, you did about 6 dashes this week.
Scout Bar does exist up the top in Surrey Hills of the Dolphin. You know, they might be interested in that sort of carry on. Shut up. Quick g'day to Steve McGarry, who come up to Beenleigh Artisan Rum Distillery for a visit.
And Wednesday pouring discount.
Yeah, a bitters menu. A bitters menu.
No word of a lie. No word of a lie. Living in Edinburgh once, I walked into a bar, and like pretty cool bar, like sort of brew pub type thing. And they had their cocktail list, and they had like a bitters selection, and you paid 50p per bitters dash.
Yeah,
and you could decide which one went in it.
Yeah, see, genius. I'm only 10 years behind my time.
That's $1 million.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Yeah, again, McGarry. Beenleigh up in Queensland, Rum Distillery there, come up for a visit on Wednesday night video. I don't know if you're asking viewers of this chat to come up and be on the Wednesday night video or just come up and drink rum. But yes, I thoroughly implore everyone to spend your holiday dollars domestically in the next sort of 12, 24, 36 for the rest of your life. What does Australia have that any other country doesn't have? Name me one thing. I don't know. I can't think of anything. But pick a town, pick a regional town that's got a distillery or a winery or a brewery in it. That's always a smart idea. He also comes up with Bitters. Brad Thomas Parsons is a cracker book. Thank you for that. I'm going to go look that one up as soon as we're off the stream here tonight. Joey, where are your holidays? Like you're like, when you want to go do something in the next little while?
We're talking probably domestically, or
yeah,
I'm sure that's going to be
again. And I'm going to ask out here, and yes, this is recorded, and yes, this is here for eternity. And I will challenge anyone who is either sitting next to me or on an Instagram feed or a Facebook feed, wherever you are, name one thing that any other country in the world has that Australia doesn't have that's worth going to visit. Just one. I'm yet to come up with one. Just one thing.
Yeah. Okay. Did a little small group virtual tasting yesterday afternoon with Mac Forbes and a few other Sydney, wine people and that sort of thing.
The King Mac Forbes.
Yeah, and he was at his cellar door there, and we were sort of tasting through a bit of a range, which
I still dream about Coldstream Pinot.
Unreal, so good. But he basically just said, like, I realised that it's been so long since I've been to the Yarra. Like over 12 months since I've been to the Yarra. And normally I would fly into Melbourne and get a car and drive up, but I'm thinking what I'm going to do next time is go through Beechworth.
Yes.
Yeah, so go down that way. I don't know the area too well, but maybe if I can sidetrack and go into Canberra a little bit and see a few guys around there, and then down through the Yarra and then Macedon and time given now to Ballarat.
What you need is someone with an intimate knowledge of the Beechworth, Yakandanda, Bright area.
Who would we know, though?
Who also has
off the top of my head.
some family living in the Lower Yarra sort of Dandenong, Pakenham area for free accommodation. I just don't know if there's anyone sitting next to you that might have that information.
Oh, no. What's the distillery in Yakima? Is it Brian Atwood's distillery?
Brian Lee Atwood's.
Yeah. Go check them out as well on the trip.
Oh, no, you have enough. No, Paul, I wasn't talking about you, man. I was talking about me. So I was trying to angle my way into that to get that holiday period.
Definitely going to go and try.
And God has just come in and trumped me.
Try and see the guys at Sorenberg. Would be an awesome visit. Golden Ball, obviously. I think we could probably take some wine to Golden Ball with me.
Bill's, so I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Indigo Vineyard out that way.
So obviously, the Chardonnay on tap in Australia is in the Beechworth Hotel, the Bridge Road Hotel front bar. Do excellent pizzas as well at the back. They've got a brewery there now. Bilson's Brewery doing a lot of gin. There is whiskey being laid down there at the moment in Beechworth. If you're in that part of the world, you're probably going to go visit Corowa as well.
Corowa, yep. But sorry, Scott, that's what I would do with my time off. Where would you go?
Well, I mean, considering I've already been to Sorenberg and been invited on the private tour down there many
years ago,
having stayed at Woolshed Falls countless times, have been to the Gorge, where famous gold mining, historic part of Beechworth, accidentally been part of the Beechworth Easter Parade more than once, been to the Lolly Factory, ridden my bike from Beechworth to Bright, ridden around the gorge. I don't know who you would take with you to Beechworth, and if you want that free accommodation down in the Lower Yarra, then you have to take me and Paul. I'm sorry, he's picked a partner. He's coming with me. The other thing is as well, when we get down to that part of the world, Puffing Billy. We're definitely doing Puffing Billy, one of the great steam train rides in all of Australia.
So scratch the whole Victorian thing. Turns out I'm not for it. But if anyone wants to do a train thing,
I'm your poor fool. And we are live again. And just to prove that we're live, there is another try time for the mighty Parramatta Eels out at Parramatta/Bankwest Stadium. It's going up to the bunker. We're just going to consider it to be a try. But yes, look, we do implore everyone to spend your money, your hard-earned, in Australia. And again,
you didn't answer the question.
No, but I've asked it twice now. No one can come up with a reason. Even a tourist attraction, just any reason why anyone should leave Australia for their holidays rather than spend here.
To be fair, I would love to spend a bit of time up around New England.
Oh, it's great.
Up that way, yeah. So mate, it goes to Jared Dixon at Gilly. Oh.
I've done a couple of Tamworth, and I tell you what, it is.
Up to the Granite Belt.
There's no words. Yeah, Granite Belt would be good. I think we're going to need to meet at the border and storm the border to get into Queensland still for a little while longer.
That's right. I know.
That's right. Yeah, you know I go.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere near Gold Coast we can do. You haven't done, and I've been lucky enough to do this. We need to do Byron as well because there's Lord Byron Distillery. Highwayman Whiskey is based out of there.
Yeah.
Speak about them. The other big one is Haas Distillery, and you haven't been there, but and thank you. I was with Paul when we did this. Name one other distillery. Vineyards are a little bit different, but one distillery in Australia where you drive through the product to get to the distillery. And what I mean by that is when you go to Husk in just outside of Timbalgum near Mount Warning up to very, very northern New South Wales. Obviously, there's a lot of distilleries in Queensland that will do this as well, but you drive through cane fields to get to the rum distillery. You stand at the back of the rum distillery and you look at cane fields. There's obviously a few Queensland distilleries I've been to that do that as well. There's not a lot of whiskey distilleries around the country that you go to and you drive through barley fields to get to. Peter Bignell in Belgrove, you don't drive through rye fields to get to his rye whiskey distillery. You get to the distillery, you stand at the back and you look at his rye fields. But for me, that was so beautiful. It was sort of like when you go and visit wineries, wherever you are in the world, you drive through vineyards to go to a winery. And I think historically, you will drive through certain fields of grain to go to the distillery where they make that. But it wasn't something that I thought that I loved until I experienced it at Timbalgum, and then I was like, "This is really, really cool." That was very, very cool.
One of the ones that does resonate with me a lot is not exactly that, but Colmar Estate out in Orange, which I know you know very well, where you can stand in their tasting room and point at the different blocks that the wine has come from. It's not massive; it's tiny, and you go, "Yeah, that's block 4. That's the Pinot.
That's
what's in that bottle."
8 blocks tall.
Yeah. And then they got the Chardonnay on the lower end, and they got the Riesling up the top, and you can't quite see the Riesling because it's over the hill. And just going, whoa, okay. Whoa, this is pretty serious.
Tell you one of my favourite, I was going to say orange Colmar stories. It's my favourite wine stories of all time. I've been to Colmar a fair bit. I've got some friends out in Orange, and certainly a very good friend of mine was living out there at the time, and so we went on a bit of a wine hunt, and both wanted to drink, I wanted to drive, fair play. Took a cab from the centre of town, like a $5 2-minute cab to Brangain Winery.
Yep.
Then walked across the road to Colmar and then went up to Ross Hill and did that again. A little while later, she had her brother, who was living in Canada at the time, was out, and so it was a bit of a let's go visit some wineries in Australia. And the brother was engaged to a Canadian girl. We'd never been to Australia before, so we went to Colmar, as you know, a bit of a favourite winery of ours. And it was winter, it was cold, it was frost, it was foggy. We drive, and Orange is quite high, so you do get snow out there, but you definitely get ice, particularly up the top of Mount Canobolas. Driving up the road right into Colmar, and you sort of have you see the 2 blocks on the road that leads up to the tasting room. Frost, fog, and just kangaroos everywhere. And these 2 Canadians were losing their mind of this tiny, tiny winery. And here, the owner happened to be there because it was after harvest, so he was sort of overseeing the winemaker that he has. And I think he's a Sydney bloke, the owner originally, and just sort of like done the tree change thing. We just went through all his Riesling, his Chardonnay, and his Pinot Noir, and just had a great time driving, like stopping every 10 metres for kangaroos, and then sitting in the very, very warmth of the tasting room in this very like foggy day, just seeing kangaroos jumping over vineyards. Colmar was, no one can ever take that memory away from me. Very, very.
It's a beautiful, beautiful like. Brangain special as well, with that view from the Colmar tasting room is unreal.
Just on the high. I think Brangain's a little bit different because you're a little bit further down. You're in it a bit, and you go into that cellar door. You were quite obviously in a working winery. Yeah, Colmar's.
There are like curtains where curtains probably shouldn't be.
It's like there's barrels and stuff. There's equipment laid around. Colmar is a tasting room. There's a big the wall is glass, right? To give you that view. A little bit same with Ross Hill. You want to go on a Ross Hill on a warm day so you can sort of see out and look over Colmar and look back over the town of Orange. Brangain, you're in a working winery, and you know that winery smell, that mixture of oak and like wine and grapes. That is very much what
it's fermentation in the air.
Yeah, pretty much. That is what Brangain is.
It's no Desalis.
And here we are again on Oak Barrel Arc Hours, episode 28, and it's descended into Orange Appreciation Hour. We're just going to need to get... What I was about to say, we need to get someone from Orange on the stream with us for one of these. It's 2020. All I've done is talk about the beauty of virtual tastings. Let's get someone remotely from actually sitting in Orange.
Tom would do it.
Bloody oath.
I reckon.
I had a lot of time for Tommy Ward.
Seeing as he was featured on the very first one of these 27 episodes ago.
Actually,
we did 003.
Well, we're getting to episode 30 soon. So maybe we need to think about marking episode 30 in some way, shape, or form. Because obviously everyone else is keeping count as well as we are. We're the only ones keeping count, but I mean, we could have hit 30 already.
We could have.
Well, if we're actually keeping that well.
We missed a few weeks here and there.
We did. Yeah. But, interesting. I've got some glasses still going.
Yeah, if Quaker's Hat is still tuning in, delicious Kolsch.
Yeah.
Son Vinu AU just says a quick g'day as well. G'day back to you guys, I guess. Nath obviously came to the shop earlier today and been really enjoying the Instagram content.
And just to prove that, again, that we are live, it's not a trick of computer and magic. There is exactly 12 minutes and 50 seconds to play in the second half of a rugby league. And the mighty Parramatta Eels are 28, I think that conversion went through. I just haven't put the score up. To the hopeless, no hoping, go home, go back to where you came from, Brisbane Broncos, who were sitting on a measly 6 points.
But to be fair, there were no pokies open last night.
28-6. No, that's right, yeah.
So, they're obviously they're probably looking to go out and,
Oh, they're lost. Anyone from Brisbane walking around Western Sydney at the moment, they don't know where they are. Absolutely lost. Got no idea where they are.
I'm quite enjoying going back to this Andre Collect and just...
It's open.
Changed
It's far more floral than it was. this time an hour ago.
So drinkable.
One thing I want to mention, because we are getting close to the 2-hour mark when we'll be kicked off Instagram, and we will take our after party onto our respective personal Instagrams to kick forward. But to go right back to the start, where I was very, very humbly and surprisingly honoured with someone wrote my name on a cask of whiskey and chalk at the Fleurio Distillery. A new release that has just been announced today. They'll be coming out soon to the Oak Barrel. I bought it. Maybe they've sold it already. We'll see how it goes. It's called Coast to... Country to Coast.
I read about that. Yeah.
So it's a vetting of 2 casks, one from Fleurio down in the Goolwa Peninsula in South Australia, right by the sea, near where a train line, a steam train line goes, and the Blackgate Distillery out of Mildura, about half an hour from Dubbo. 2 casks, so it's a blended malt. It's not a single malt, coming from 2 different places. Haven't tried it yet because I haven't got my hands on any, but that'll be coming in. But I think that's a really exciting, cool little project. It's going to be about $180, $190 on the Oak Barrel shelf if they will let us have any. But I just wanted to give that a mention. For 2 of my favourite distilleries, they've said some nice things about me today, so I should give that a plug, and I look forward to trying it.
Yeah, I was reading about that at lunch today, actually. It sounded really cool.
Yeah.
Big fan of both those distilleries.
With your back Jack Daniels t-shirt on.
With my Jack Daniels t-shirt on, yeah.
Love to see it.
Might just keep it.
What, you mean keep it on, or just is it not your shirt?
I don't know, to be perfectly honest.
Where did you get that shirt from this morning?
No, so I got this shirt at the bartender's party.
Yes.
That Brown Foreman put on
at the
last year.
Lansdowne?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what happened because I remember heading there and then I woke up and I had a shirt. So
to be fair, that's the correct way to do things, rather than go the other way and wake up without a shirt. If this
is your shirt, I will happily give it back. But I hope it's mine. It's a cool shirt.
Vanilla Strat again. I don't know what your real name is. Because
do you have any strong feelings on decanting young wine worth it? Yeah. So this is pretty interesting actually because it's going to be quite dependent on the wine. Often, like decanting is quite. I feel like in a lot of older wines, people will assume that they'll need to decant it to let it open up, when often this isn't the case. Whereas, especially depending on how tannic the wine is and how much acidity it has, older wines that have maybe spent a lot of time in bottle and under cork can have quite fragile tannins. So decanting them and exposing them to a lot of oxygen quite quickly can break these tannins down really, really quickly and allow the oxygen to develop the wine, which you don't want. Whereas young wines, like if I'm drinking, say, Austrian Grüne Veltliner or dried young German Riesling or heavily aromatic varieties that tend to have a good amount of acidity, I quite enjoy them being decanted young, straight out of the bottle if they're current vintage or within 2 or 3 years, just because you want to try and get those aromas going as quickly as possible. Don't decant young reds as often, maybe like some Cool Climate Pinot, just to see what that'll do. But essentially you're just fast-tracking oxygen exposure. So recently I've actually turned to not decanting older reds, especially Bordeaux blends, Shiraz, Malbecs as well, because I feel like in the decanter they do fall over pretty quickly.
Yeah, I stuffed that up when trying to blind taste you, and there was a certain French wine that I decanted that I thought would need it to show you to get it. But
that was the Chateauneuf de Pape.
Yeah, which I probably should have just done it fresh.
And then we did the 05 Mourvèdre next to that. And the 05 Mourvèdre was looking youthful, and then the Chateauneuf de Pape was looking really old.
The Hewitson Mourvèdre.
Yeah, it was the Hewitson Mourvèdre, which was looking like amazing, and a lot of these Hewitzons are opening at the moment are looking outstanding. But
thank you for your questions. Instagram's going to give us the countdown to kick off. We've been doing this for 2 hours. We will continue to live stream and talk a little bit of rubbish, but we'll go probably off the Oak Barrel account onto our Instagram account. So Joey, if you could please punch in.
It's going to go into the chat under my name. But
that's all right. Joey can bring that for you. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Thank you for Fitzsimons.Scott. because that's my name, so I don't need a weird handle because that is my name. Thank you everyone on the Facebook for tuning in, as well as the Instagram. We're going to move over there now. There's some important things to wrap up before we get kicked off in a minute and 40 seconds. The current compliment tally. I did get another compliment, and I just gave Joey one on his shirt, so that is a win for Fitzsimons. 4 compliments on the haircut to Joey's 3 compliments on the shirt.
I'm going to have a better shirt next week, I promise.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a shitter haircut next week, so it's not looking good. To prove we are live again, just as we tune out, there is about 6.5 minutes left in rugby league left tonight. The mighty Parramatta Eels are 28, the hopeless Brisbane Broncos 6. Backwards Distillery was just about to mention the hair.
No,
yeah,
too late.
5-3. That's right. I win anyway, mate. I win anyway. That's good. Thank you for us all joining in. We hope to see you in a bar as of next Monday. Socially distanced, with no dancing, no kissing, no standing up, but just giving back some money to the hospital community, having some great drinks from some world-class people that we have in Sydney. If you're not in Sydney, we'll see you around the country at some point. Joey, any final points? Oh, Janet, the drink,
Janet,
the drink of happiness, the drink of love. I can put that recipe up on my personal account. You've got 24 seconds to say something insightful and interesting.
Yep. So, no, not even that.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So Instagram packed up on us. Thank you everyone on the Facebook. We will see you soon. Thank you, Phil. We'll chat to you soon, I am sure. Let us finish this.